All right, good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. I'm a little bit early today, so I'm going to wait a little bit to let people join us if they're so inclined. And I'm going to turn off some speakers here so I don't get feedback. So part of the reasons we're doing extra trainings is we are in the process of migrating many customers from the vConsole to Dash. So we're trying to give them more opportunities to view the trainings because there's a lot of people who previously did not have a reason to view this. If you ever need to look at any of the guides for Dash, you can find them on the VirtualPBX site, www.virtualpbx.com. You can mouse over support, select Dash support, scroll down. You'll see some training videos there already, including a previous recording of this training. And then further down, you'll see individual guides on specific features, basically how to set them up, basically what we're going to go over today. Those guides will have screenshots, with various areas on the screenshots highlighted or otherwise noted to pay attention to, as well as step-by-step instructions. Alrighty here. So on the screen here, you have our Dash login page, which is the dash.virtualpbx.com. So dash.virtualpbx.com. I would recommend if just bookmarking that page. And then you would need your login credentials, right? So the first one is your username, which is going to be your email address. If you are a migration customer, then that email address would match your extension's system or password recovery email address. Then you would need your password, which hopefully you got via email. And then lastly, you need the account name, which is typically the company name. Now, if it's, it could be your own name if it's your own business and you just signed up using your name. Now, if for some reason you didn't get the password email, you can click on the Forgot Info link. Again, you just need your email address, and then either the account name or one of the account phone numbers. Either or, you don't need both. And then you would click on the Reset Password. Then you'll get an email with a link. It will then prompt you to change your password. Once you change your password, it will log you out and then make you log back in with the new password. Like you might be able to navigate to one other spot within Dash, but then it'll kick you back out. All right, so let me get my password in here. And for most people, I say just click on Remember Me, so that way that's one less password you have to worry about remembering, because I'm sure like most of you have way more passwords in your life than you would ever want. And here I'm on the main dashboard. Now, if it's your first time logging in, the system will actually kick you up to your account information here. So here you can change like your time zone, you can update your password, your email, etc. As an admin, you also can get to the account view. So that way you can change the account level time zone, right? So if the system bot, for whatever reason, puts you in LA instead of, say, on East Coast time, you probably want to change that. So that way, if you set up hours of operation, that will work properly, as well as you have proper timestamps for voicemail, things of that nature. Now, this is a test account, so it doesn't have everything that your accounts would have. So on your accounts, you would have a little line here, and then some additional options. Mostly these are billing options, so you can see like your service plan, You can update your credit card information. I believe you can also get your latest invoice. So, but then also that first time you log into Dash, you're going to have a little Dash wizard pop up to tell you what these things are and walk you through it. When you're done, just go ahead and click close over here to the top right, and then you'll be back on the dashboard. Now, to get that back to that again, you just click on your name up here at the top right. Over here, we've got the little question mark icon, and you've got these 4 subcategories. Chat with us will open up a chat window to contact our support team so they can walk you through whatever feature it is you're running into problems with or you have questions about. You've got Learn More, which will take you to the support pages directly, so you can just read up on the particular guides that you're looking at. Oops. We got the online store, like just store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can buy VoIP phones. You can buy headsets. You can also get the desktop version of our app. And then we have the web phone. Now, the web phone link will only show up once you have a web phone on your user. For migrated customers, you should have a web phone automatically, so it would show up. The web phone makes use of Chrome or Firefox to allow you to use your computer to make and receive calls. Right? Obviously, you need a mic and speakers, at the very least, and an internet connection. Now, in terms of the web phone, that does count as it is a type of soft phone. The web phone itself will work fine on desktop or laptop computers. On mobile OSs, right, Android or iOS, you might run into problems. I've been able to get the web phone to work on my Android phone using Chrome, but I know customers have had issues on iOS, at least a few versions ago, with Chrome or Firefox. So it's not something we recommend at this time. Over here, we got the 3 horizontal line or menu icon. We sometimes refer to it as the hamburger icon. These get you to other features or feature areas of Dash. Right? So we're currently on the dashboard, and you see these other ones, which we'll be getting to later. And then here you have the logout icon. On the left here, we've got the other core features of Dash. We'll be going through all of them. Basically, we'll be going down that list. And then here, we've got your snapshot of your system. So total users, these are all the people on your account that are making and receiving calls, most likely. Depending on your plan, will depend on if adding users increases your bill or not. For our migration customers, you're being grandfathered in. So whatever plan you're on vConsole, you'd be paying the same price on Dash. Dash has other plan options, and other features are available on different plans. So that might be something you want to look into, like SMS, right, texting, right? That's on selected plans. If you're interested in that, you'd want to talk to our account services team, see about changing your plan. Down here, we got total devices and a breakdown of those devices, right? Cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. Then we've got the web phone, right? Again, using Chrome and Firefox to make and receive calls from a computer. Soft phone, this is your typical soft phone application, right? So software on a computer or tablet or smartphone uses internet connection to make and receive calls. Been around for quite some time now, actually. These will count as VoIP devices, as does the web phone. Web phones are free on all plans, by the way. I should point that out. Then we've got SIP phone. So SIP is a kind of VoIP phone. It's a physical device, right? So it's a phone that sits on your desk. You can pick up the handset and dial out. Again, it connects to your internet connection to make and receive calls. There are many kinds of VoIP phones on the market. SIP is just a particular type. So if you're out shopping, assuming your state lets you do that still, just make sure when you're looking at the compatibility list for that SIP, the VoIP phone,
it does say it's SIP compliant or SIP compatible. That way you know it at least has a chance to work with us. And on Dash SIP phone, it specifically is for a phone that's been auto-provisioned through the system. And we'll be getting into how to do that in a little bit. And then we have landline, which is pretty self-explanatory. Now, these unregistered devices, right? I've got 23. That's the system knows when a VoIP device is connected or not to the internet, basically. All right. So once your VoIP device gets on the internet, it's going to reach out to us and say, "Hey, I'm here. You can send calls to me," or it can send calls to us to get out into the world. All right. So if it's unregistered, that means it might not be on, right? Or you might have a user who lost their internet connection, right? Or the dog ran by the router and knocked the cables loose and the phone dropped offline. All right, then we got total numbers. All right, so these are your phone numbers on the account. Your Dash plans typically range from including 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of your plan price. If you go over that allotment, it's $4.99 per month per phone number. Then we got the breakdown. First is assigned numbers, and then first is spare numbers. I don't think I currently have spare numbers on this account. Yeah, I do not. So a spare number is a number you're not using, right? It's still on your account because you may use it in the future, or you just stopped using it because of a promotion just ended. An assigned number means you're using it, right? It's one of your main numbers, or going to one of your sales reps, or to a ring group, etc. But as long as a number is on your account, you can be charged for it, or at least it counts towards your allotment. All right. Down below, we've got the breakdown between U.S. toll-free and U.S. DID. Right, toll-free, 800 number, 877, down to 833 currently. U.S. DID, that's just a U.S. local number, right? So you can have a number in, say, Miami, Florida, or in San Jose, California, and anywhere in between. If you're interested in having an international number, you're going to want to email our porting team. That's porting, P-O-R-T-I-N-G, at VirtualPBX.com. They need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. They will the porting team will then reply to you, let you know any future requirements, right, or additional requirements. So some countries like Germany, they require proof of presence within that city. Usually a utility bill is sufficient in that instance. Other countries like the UK, for example, they don't care. They just say, okay, here's the number. And there are some countries that are very stringent. So if there's, again, any kind of requirements, our porting team will let you know what those are. Conference bridges, I got 6. Basically, what that means is I've enabled conferencing on 6 of my users, so they can host a conference. Now, I'm not able to I'm not allowed to enable conferencing on a user unless I've already assigned a phone number to be a main conference number. Right. So the first step to make use of conferencing is first assign a main conference number. All right. Towards the top right, we've got our main numbers. Right. So these are my general numbers that my customers call, or your customers will call, to get to your phone system. Right. To speak to you and your staff. So your main numbers, they all behave in the same fashion, right? So they all route the same way. They're all going to have the same main greeting, for example. Down below, we've got our main conference number. Now, you can have multiple conference numbers if you want. I just selected just one for this account. Again, this is, and the main conference number everybody uses, right? Your staff members will use it. Your outside, vendors or customers would use it to get to the conference bridges. And then they would need the conference room number and then the password, which you would have to email them or tell them over the phone, etc. Fax box number or fax number. You can have one fax box number,
This is so you can receive, it actually enables faxing on the system in general. The number itself is where you receive numbers. Once you have a fax box enabled, you can send faxes out. Currently on Dash, that's an email to fax feature. You would create an email, right? So create a new email. In the to field, you put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the area code and phone number that you're faxing to, right? The fax number. And then you put the @ symbol and then your account route. And then you simply attach a PDF and send it off. The email can include, in the body of the email, there's no point in typing anything in there because the system will only grab the attachment and that's what faxes out, nothing else. The system will only fax out one attachment, so one attachment per email. The largest file I've been able to fax out was 7 megabytes, but that took over an hour to get delivered. So that's something to bear in mind. All right, company directory, when you click download, this is going to be a simple text file. It shows all your users with their extension numbers. All right, so if someone wants a printout of everyone's extension numbers, you can do that and make copies if necessary. The soft phone directory, if you download this, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone app. All right, so you download this file and then you would upload it to the desktop soft phone. This allows you to see all the other users who have the soft phone, and you can see their status, right? So if I open up my soft phone right now, and I've downloaded this file for us, I can see, which of my coworkers are on a call, at least with the soft phone. Right? I can then call them directly if I wanted to, etc. All right, store discount code right here. Just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in the web store. And then down here at the bottom, which I've already alluded to, is your account realm. So beyond the outbound faxing, right, as after the @ symbol on the email, account realm is also used to program a third-party application or device, right? So you want to use a soft phone, but you don't like our soft phone app, or rather, you have one that you're already comfortable with using. You would use the realm along with a couple other pieces of information to program that application to work with your Dash system. All right, up here, you've got your company caller ID. Now, my streaming software doesn't always let my pull downs work, but you can select any of your main numbers here. And then you've got your company caller ID name, right, CNAME. This, you can input up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. And after you click on Save Changes, that gets transmitted to all the carriers who support CNAME. They'll update their servers. That can take up to 3 business days. And then once you do that, when you make an outbound call with a VoIP device, your CNAME information gets transmitted up with that call. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. Not every carrier that your call can route through supports CNAME. This is usually the smaller or regional carriers. So unfortunately, if your call happens to route through one of those carriers, the CNAME information is not going to show up at your destination. There's not a lot we can do about that because we can't make other companies decide to comply with CNAME. Even for the carriers who do support CNAME, it's a low priority. Right? First priority, connect the call. Right? Secondly, then the caller ID, the actual phone number, and then the CNAME information is at a distant third. So if they have heavier than expected call volume, they'll typically drop the CNAME information just to make sure calls can connect still. Obviously, if they have an outage or some maintenance issue, they're, again, more concerned about getting calls connected versus CNAME information. And then one minor thing that can come up is if someone has your phone number already programmed in the device, right, that's going to supersede anything we send, right? So if they've already listed your company number, oh, Bob's company, that's what's going to show up, whatever your company name may actually be in the CNAME field.
All right, the company emergency information, or the E911. Yeah, this is the address associated with that phone number. You can have the same address on multiple phone numbers. That's not a big deal, or different ones if you have different locations. But simply put, this is the default information that will get sent to emergency services if one of your staff members picks up their VoIP phone and dials 911. Now you can change the 911 information by VoIP device as well as by phone number. But if you make any changes, you would just click on Save Changes. And wait for it to finish updating. All right. Next up, we've got hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own hold music. It accepts .wav or .mp3 files. You want to make sure that is recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that it's under 1 megabyte size. You would just click on Upload. You would find the file on your computer, and then click on this little blue and white upload arrow. You'll get this loading bar, and then you would click on Save Changes. Now, hold music on Dash is defined as once a call has reached a user, and then that user presses the hold button on the VoIP phone. That's when this file will play. Right, up until then, they would hear ringing as they're waiting for a call to connect. And if you make any changes, again, click on Save Changes. Now, hours is actually part of main number, so we're just going to go to main number. All right, so up here, you got your main company numbers. If I decide I don't want to use one of these numbers any longer, right, I can unassign it. So I still have that number, right? It's still on my account. I just removed it from being part of my main number list. If you want to add numbers, you can add them from your spare number list, or you can buy numbers directly, right? You got local or toll free. Toll free, pretty easy. You just select the prefix you want to use. Then you just click on search, and you'll get a list of what's available. If you scroll down, you'll see it'll populate some more numbers. All right, you can click add a number. It's added to your little cart here. You see the number, you can remove it, or you can click on buy numbers. And now I have a new main number here. Now, anywhere you can add a number, like a user, a ring group, a queue, etc., you can do the same. You have these same options of add from spare numbers or buy numbers. And the advantage of doing it that way is that it goes directly to where you want it, right? You can also buy numbers under the numbers tab over here, but when you do that, it just puts them in spare number, and then you still have to go and assign it someplace. So it may add another step, essentially. All right, office hours strategy. Default, new accounts get 24-hour open office. Most people are under custom office hours. For migrated accounts, our upgrade team would have mapped whatever your day-night mode settings were to match. Simply put, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark, and then you enter your open and your open hours, right? And so when you first open up and then when you close, in these two boxes, these are in 24-hour or military time. Also here at the bottom, if your whole facility is closed for lunch, you can say, hey, I'm closed for lunch, and then you can enter in your lunch hours here. Next up, you've got your office holidays. So if you're closed for holidays, you put a check mark here. And then over here to the right, you've got add holiday. You've got your options for single day, date range, and advanced. Right, so single day, this is like what I have here for President's Day. It just said, hey, it's February 18th. So I believe for this coming year, that's not right. But basically, once the system rolls around to February 18th, it's automatically going to put me in holiday mode. I don't have to do anything special. Right, date range, that's like I have here for Christmas.
right? So December 23rd to the 26th. Again, once the calendar flips to the 23rd, boom, system puts me in holiday mode. And then after the 26th, I'm back on normal business hours. And then advanced is like this retreat option here where I'm saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're in holiday mode, right? Company picnic. You can change this to be like the last, second, third, fourth, or fifth, right? And obviously day of the week. Now, big caveat, there's no year indicator on any of these. So especially for date range, you don't want a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, right? You just want to do a single day for each one of those. If you make any changes, click on Save Changes. All right, incoming call handling, right? So these are for your main numbers. You notice here I've got my open hours, I have my after hours, and my holidays. And then I've got these same options here, right? So calls come in on any of my main numbers during my open hours. Right now, they're going to my virtual receptionist. If I click on virtual receptionist, because that's a link, it's going to open up a new little pop-up window here. And on my left, this is my main menu, right? This is what people press on their phone to navigate through my phone system. And then over here to the right, I've got my greeting option. Now, right, to add a dialing option on your main menu, right, you click on Add Route. You've got the default route and then 0 through 9 to choose from. Again, my pull downs aren't working here. And then you choose where they're going to go. Now, you have basically, you've got your choice of the Smart Directory, any user you've already added to the account, any queues, if you have queues. And the reason that's a question is because standard queues are between $15 to $30 per month, depending on your plan. Pro queues, I believe, start at $99, depending on your plan. Devices, you can send it to a specific device. You can send it to a media file, meaning a greeting file essentially plays. Once that message stops, then the call ends. You can send it to a ring group, which are essentially simple versions of queues that there's no charge for those. Advanced options or advanced call flows, this is where you can make use of submenuing. So I'm not sure why it's not showing up on this count, but you can have multiple auto attendants. And when you can choose to have those multiple auto attendants show up on the main menus, and that allows you to have submenuing, right? So basically, I can say, send it to Vegas base. That's its own auto attendant, which means it has its own greeting, and it would have a separate new set of greeting options or menu options. And then you can also send it to a voicemail box. And each one of these options has its own icon. I should have. Normally that's a little music note here. Now, if you want to remove one of these options, you would just click on the little X to the right of it, and that'll get rid of it. Over here on the greeting options, you've got text-to-speech, right? You type in a greeting, you click Update, you would click on Save, and then Save Changes. Computerized robotic voice, and there's no charge for that. You can upload your own file, right? .wave, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Again, find the file on your computer, and then click Update. Again, save changes. You can choose from existing recordings or text-to-speech files. Again, this pull-down is not showing, but you can select whichever one you want, and then click Update. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system wants you to use a VoIP device, and you would call your main number and enter in this PIN number when you hear the greeting. Now, if you don't have a greeting in place, you'll hear a message saying, there's no menu for this, or no greeting has been set up for this menu. And then you enter in the PIN number, and then the system will walk you through creating a new creating a greeting. If you don't have VoIP phones or you don't want to use a VoIP phone, you've got a setting down here, allow outside recording. If you turn this on, that means you can use a cell phone or landline. The reason that's not on by default, typically speaking, is it can be a security issue, right? Someone could try to figure out the PIN number and then change your main greeting on you, which would be bad. Another caveat about recording over the phone, if you already have a greeting in place, right? So you have greeting, the file name greeting A is currently playing. You go, oh, I need to change this greeting. You call in, right? Hit your PIN number here. You record a new greeting, right? The file name stays the same. It's still greeting A. It's just the content you just overwrote with whatever you just recorded with. You have an option here for professional recording services. When you click that order button there, down here at the bottom, that will take you to a new website hosted by Snap Recordings. That's who we've partnered with. They have like 180 to 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English available. So you can have a UK English greeting versus an American English greeting. I believe they still have different versions of Spanish and French available. So again, you can have multilingual greetings. They have what they refer to as hold treatment packages, right? So you have a music file and the script being read off. They handle their own pricing and their own billing, i.e. they ask you for a credit card. And they deliver via email, and then you can simply upload your own file. All right, some of your settings. Number of retries on missed dial. Basically, if someone keeps pressing, looks like 5 is not a valid option, right? So if they keep pressing 5 after that second attempt, the system just says, okay, that you don't get any more tries. And then it will either go to a default route, or if you don't have a default route, it will end the call. It'll say, we did not recognize your entries, goodbye. Dialing timeout, this should actually be a full integer, like 1 versus the 0.01 here. What that is telling the system how long to wait after it hears a button press before it assumes that the inbound caller is done, right? So I press in, 1128, and then I can tell the system wait for 1 second after the last button press, and then assume they're done. For most people, it's somewhere between 1 and 5 is what they choose. Now, in general, I don't recommend the use of a default route, and that's just because of robodialers, right? Because the robodialer can come into your system and say, especially if your default route goes to a voicemail or to a user, right? Then a robodialer comes in, here's your greeting play a couple of times, gets sent to your default route, and then your user or the voicemail box, gets a, message about, whatever. It could be a political ad. It could be, I guess if you're lucky, it's a political ad, so at least it's something versus like just, wind noise or a random joke or some random music file playing. And all of that would use up minutes on your plan, which is why I say, hey, just don't have a default route if you don't need it. And it'll prevent some robodialer getting through to your system. And it has the benefit of, for your actual customers who are calling, right, they have to press a menu option to get somewhere. So at least they're paying attention. So any changes you make here, again, click on Save. And then you want to click on Save Changes as well. Let's go back into it. Now, these other routing options, again, so I can, during my open hours, right, I can have the call come in. I'm offering it to Bob. If Bob isn't able to pick up, then the caller goes to the virtual receptionist. And again, this is that same virtual receptionist we were just looking at because it's still open hours. Right? I can send it to a ring group. I can send it to a queue. I can send it to a specific device. And I can also send it to a media file. Right? But the main goal here is you're trying to give a staff member a chance to, or multiple staff members in the case of groups, or in terms of groups and queues, a chance to answer the call first. And if no one's able to, then the caller goes to the virtual receptionist to enter in a menu option or an extension number. All right, so it's a little more potentially user-friendly in terms of your inbound callers have a chance to speak to someone first. All right, next option, call comes in, again, offered to a user, a media file, a group, a queue, etc. They're not able to pick up, then sent to a voicemail box. This also has an additional option all the way here at the bottom, which says just skip the voicemail, right? So basically you're saying call comes in, hey, just send it to voicemail. So it's Thanksgiving week here in the US. You can say, hey, just send it to voicemail. So all inbound calls on your main numbers just going to a voicemail box where you can say, hey, we're closed for the holiday. Please leave a message and we'll get back to you. Right? So after hours and holidays, they still have these same options. But like for the virtual receptionist, for example, you click on it. You have different menu options. You would probably have a different greeting for your holiday or your after hours. Again, so this allows you to control how calls are routing off of your main numbers based on your time of day. All right, main conference number, you can buy numbers, you can add from spare. You have a custom greeting here if you want to, basically saying, hey, thanks for calling our conference. Even without a custom greeting, the system will prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then a PIN number, and then they'll join the conference room. The main fax box number, again, you can have the one fax number. You can always unassign it. You can buy new or from spare. And then you can click on edit fax box. Now on this, since this is a test account, editing the fax box doesn't work properly. On your account, it will. It'll pop up a new window and with two fields. The first field is to enter an email address, and that email address is the person or the location, I guess, that is going to get the inbound faxes, right? So whoever has that email address does get an email saying, hey, you have a fax, here's an attachment. They can click on it. It's going to be a PDF. They can look at the fax. The second field is for outbound permission, right? So who's allowed to send a fax out? This is especially useful if you own your own company domain. So like you're abccleaners.com, and everyone in your company has an email address that ends in the @ at abccleaners.com. You can add that domain into that second field in the fax box. And that means anyone in your company who has an email address that way can send a fax out, even if they're not a user on Dash. I guess it mostly just comes down to how often you're faxing these days. All right, devices shows your devices on the account. Green means it's registered. Red means it's not. Black means you've disabled it. Adding devices. You can do it here. You can also do it on the users directly. It depends on what your preference is. But we'll go over it here since we're here now. SIP phone. Again, this is a physical phone. Sits on a desk or somewhere, counter. You can choose your manufacturer here. I'll go with Cisco. And then you pick your model number. Then you give it a device name. So like Bob's phone. And then you enter the MAC address. Right? The MAC address is unique to each phone. Usually it's a sticker on the back of the phone. If you plug the phone in, you click on the status. One of the options there should be to show the MAC address as well. And then you would click on create device. And then you would then click on the wrench icon next to the device to assign it to somebody. Now, in terms of the dashboard here, you're done. In terms of the device, you are not. You would then want to go into that phone's web user interface and enter in a URL in the auto provisioning section. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, when you get on the internet, go to this site. That site asks for the MAC address, says, oh, I know what phone you are, and I know what account you're on. Here's your config file. The phone gets the file. It's going to reboot at least once or twice, right? Basically, hey, apply the changes from the config file, reboot. It may update its firmware to be compliant with us, reboot again, and then it should show up as a green device where it registered. You can then make and receive calls. Now, for those specific instructions for that URL and whatnot, if you go under the support section, right, so go to support, mouse over support, select dash support. Over on the right under VoIP phones, you're looking for the guide called Auto Provisioning Phones. Should be the 5th or 6th one, I believe. And that will have screenshots and the specific URLs that you're looking to add. Right, cell phone and landline are the same. You give it a name, right? Mary's phone, for example. And then you put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the area code and phone number of that device. And then you assign it to one of your users, right? Then you click on Create Device. Once you've done that, I want to take a little time to explain what goes on. So when Dash sends a call to either a cell phone or landline, right, that phone will ring, you'll pick up. By default, you will hear a message saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. So when you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call, right? The system hears that tone and connects that inbound caller to you, and then you can start talking. Now on Dash, that's the end point of a call, right? When you send it to a cell phone or landline, you cannot transfer a call to another user on Dash. You would need to have a VoIP device like the soft phone to be able to transfer. Now, if, for instance, you're actually you're using cell phone or landline to send calls to, say, an automated answering service, right, to handle like your after hours or holiday scheduling, then what you would want to do is on that device, click this box up here, allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So what that does is now you don't have to press 1 to accept the call, right? So because your automated answering service can't do that. Basically Dash hears that pickup tone, it connects the call. Right, so then your automated answering service takes over and that customer is handled. Now, if this is actually your cell phone and you have that checked, then if your cell phone voicemail picks up, the inbound caller can end up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't want that at all. That's a personal preference thing. Right. The other option here is keep original caller ID. So what happens here, say, customer Susie is calling in, right? It rings to your cell phone. You will see Susie's actual phone number show up on the caller ID on your phone. And you're like, I don't know that number. I'm not going to answer it. Right? And then it goes to the system voicemail. If you uncheck this, keep original caller ID, what happens instead is whatever your main number is defaulted to under the caller ID settings on the dashboard page, that phone number, so in this case, it's that 702 number for this account, will show up on your phone's display. So that way you know, oh, this is a work call, and then you can take the call. All right, soft phone. Right, first you have a little warning message saying, hey, you might be on a mobile device. Your E911 information may not be accurate, so please be careful about dialing 911. But you hit close. Okay, give a device name. Now, the system is defaulting you to a third-party application. Right, that's this section right down here, which is all grayed out, meaning you're using a cell phone application not from VirtualPBX, right, some other company like, say, Counterpath, or you're using this to program a phone because it didn't show up under that SIP phone list. And in both of those instances, you'd want to copy the SIP username. You'd want to click on the box for the SIP password and copy this and the account realm. And you would use that information to program that device or application to work with us. Right? And then you would assign it to a user. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX application, what you want to do is right here where it says use third-party application. You click on that. So now it switches it to say, hey, use VirtualPBX application. You give it a name and you assign it to an owner, and then you click create device. What then happens is that user gets an email saying, hey, your cell phone's ready. Here's your login information. If they're going to be using it on an Android or iOS phone or tablet, they can just download the app from the relevant app store. They can just look up VPBX phone and download the app, use the login credentials, they're good to go. If you want to use the desktop app, you're going to want to go up to the online store here and order the desktop app for either Windows or Mac OS. And then web phone, again, you get the same little information about the E911. Give it a name, assign it to someone, click on Create Device. The web phone is at webphone.virtualpbx.net, right? So on the website, it uses the same login information as your Dash login, and then you can make and receive calls. All right, next up, you got the Greetings Manager. This shows all the greetings you have on your account. All right, the name, the source is either TTS, right, text to speech, upload, the uploaded file, and then recording, meaning you recorded over the phone. You can download the file so you can listen to it to see if it's still relevant to you. And if you click on the little wrench icon here, you can change the name as well as delete the file. Okay, groups, shorthand for ring groups, right, a department, for example. Click on Add Group, you give it a name, you give it an extension number, and then you click and drag your users that you want to be in the group, and then you would click on Create Group. So once the group's created, you can then click on the name. Right, you can change the name, and you've got this dialing repeats option. Basically, this controls how many times the inbound caller can ring through to everybody in the group. Also, you have the option to delete a group. The dialing repeats, there's little arrows here to the far right, which you can put up and down to adjust how many times it rings through. If you click on the members box, it shows all your members in the group currently. You can add people if you need to. Up here, this is your time, right? So how much time the call can be in. By default, a new group is set up with 120 seconds. You can increase that or decrease that as you need to. Now, these are sliders, so I can do something like this, saying, hey, I want all my staff members to ring for the full time. So whoever gets the call first gets the call. Right? If I decide that's not working for me, or my staff saying, hey, that's annoying, and so, okay, well, I want to change the order around, and then I can click distribute. So now it rings in sequence, and that's always going to ring in the sequence. So if Kathy here is on a call in the group already, and another call comes in the group, she'll hear a call waiting tone until it rolls on to the next person. So that's something to keep in mind. Groups can have extensions and phone numbers, right? So that's the extension is so your other staff members can transfer calls to that group, and then phone numbers would go directly into that group. Queues, by the way, can only have one or the other, right? They can have an extension or a phone number. But again, both groups and queues can be menu options off of your virtual receptionist. Oh, also, one advantage groups can have, that groups do have over the queues right now is groups can we can send calls to cell phones or VoIP devices or landlines. On queues, we can only send calls to VoIP devices currently. All right, and then the group features box, ringback, you can have a music file play. Right, you can upload .wav, .mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. The main thing is that you want to make sure that file length matches or exceeds the ring time you have on your group. The system doesn't automatically leak the file for you. So you can just go back here and say, oh, it's 120 seconds. I need to make sure my ringback file plays for 120 seconds. Next action, if you enable this, no one in my group was able to pick up. What do I want to do with the call? Right. So in this case, I'm sending it to a voicemail box, but I can send it to a device. I can send it to a specific user. I can send it to another group. And I should be able to send it to the main menu. Right. Allow call forwarding. If you enable this, your users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're not going to be at their mobile phone that they use. So then calls can go get to a forwarded device. Caller ID prepend. This is a VoIP feature. Basically, this allows you to put either additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID. This lets your staff know what the call is about, right? So like, especially if they're in multiple groups or queues, it will help them like, oh, this is a billing call versus a order status call, that sort of thing. Numbers, and shows all the numbers on your account and where they're going. You can click on the little gear icon here for each number. You can set up the caller ID, right? So you can set up individual CNAME for the numbers as well as turn on to allow inbound CNAME. You can set up the E911 for each individual number. Right, and get the E911 info. Prepend, again, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text in front of the caller ID to let the staff member know what the call is about. Under spare numbers, you can buy a number here, right, local or toll-free. You also have the option to port a number. So port a number means you're moving a number from one carrier to another, right? So say from AT&T to VirtualPBX. You just click on new port request. You would fill out the information and then keep following the on-screen instructions here. The main thing is we need a completed and signed letter of agency, or LOA. You can actually download a blank one in this process here. You can also find it on our website under the dash support pages. On that LOA, it's going to ask you for your company information, right? The company name and the address. That should match what the current carrier, so like in this case AT&T, whatever they have on file, that's the information that should be on the LOA. It does ask for a signature, right? So it can be a digital signature. It can be you printed it out and signed it yourself, but it does need to be signed. It cannot be typed in. And then you want to make sure to include the phone number that you're porting on the bottom there. If you're porting a mobile number, we will also need an account PIN number, which you'll need to get from your current carrier. It's a security feature on cell phones, on cell phone numbers, so that way they don't get ported and then your cell phone no longer works unless you already knew about it, right? So by requesting a PIN number, you're telling the other carrier, oh, yes, I plan to port this number. Once that port completes, especially for a mobile number, right, that device is no longer going to work. So you need to get either a new number from your current carrier or just realize, hey, I'm not going to use this cell phone anymore, right, because I'm having to go through a phone system. Now, once you submit in this port request, you'll get initially an automated email saying, hey, we got your request. What should also happen is by the next business day, if not the same business day, you'll get a second email that's from an actual person, right? So one of our porting team members is basically saying, hey, thank you for giving us your porting documents. Here's what to expect. If you don't get that second email porting@virtualpbx.com to double check. Say, hey, did you guys get my documents? I just submitted it. Right? If they say, no, we're not finding anything, you can still email porting@virtualpbx.com with the LOA. And if you're porting a local number, we also need a copy of your bill. Send those documents in, and we can still submit your port request that way. Just so you know, toll-free numbers usually take 3 to 5 business days to port, assuming everything is correct. Local numbers average about a week, maybe 2 weeks. Again, assuming everything's correct. If there's problems, the losing carrier will email us saying, hey, like the address mismatch or bad authorization name, right? They're not going to tell us, oh, the street address was off by a digit or you have the wrong zip code. They're not going to tell us that level of detail, they just say it's wrong, or this piece of information was off, right? And then if we communicate that to you, you would then need to contact the current carrier saying, hey, what should be the information I need to port out a number? And they should be able to give that to you. We can update the request, and then everything should be fine. All right. Also, under spare numbers, if you decide you no longer want a number, it does need to be a spare number first. And then right here, this little box, you can put a check mark there, and now you've got the option to delete it. Delete the numbers. Said yes, you've successfully deleted the number, and now it's off your account. All right, users, right, shows all your users on the account. Little gray person icon is your standard user. Person with a blue suit is your admin. You can tell we have several admins on this account. If you click on add new user or add user, you need to input their first and last name. The email address they use for login, it does need to be unique for each user. Right, so you can't reuse support@virtualpbx.com for 5 different people, right, that you would each have to have their own. You then create a password for them, and then you enter an extension number. Now, on this account, I started with extension 1000, so it's telling me the next number in that sequence that's available is 1029. I can keep that. I can back this out and make it 3422. Okay, then we got these 4 options down here, right? So create a voicemail box for this user. That is recommended. Basically, that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to that user. So like when you say if you add a VoIP phone to this user, they can pick up their VoIP phone and hit *98 on their VoIP phone, and it will go right to this voicemail box. And then, the first time they do that, it'll prompt them to create a PIN number as well as their record a voicemail greeting. Include in the company directory, then you can always change that if you want. Send emails to alternate address. So this would, if you add an address here, right, an email address here, this will supersede this email address for like voicemails or password recovery, etc. And then the last one, which I think is the most important, send credentials to the user. And then you would click on create user if you only need to add one person. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Once you've added a user, you can click on their name. Right, you can always change their name. You can change their credentials, right? So you can change their email address or their password. Also, as an admin, you have this option here where you can send a password reset to someone. So let's say Bob, he has trouble remembering whatever password I create for him. Like I make them too complicated, or we're just on completely different wavelengths for passwords. I can click this, and he can reset his password, and he can make his own to something that he will remember. The voicemail box PIN, again, your VoIP users, you don't have to set a PIN number for, right? They can set that up themselves. For your cell phone or landline users, you do need to create a PIN number for them. Right, option here to send to alternate address, as well as the user directory. Over here on the right, this is a pull down where you can make a user into an admin or an admin back to a user. You got the time zone here. So since a lot of people are working remote, people might be in different time zones now. The language that dash displays in, French, English, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout, this case is 45 seconds. The default on a new user is 20 seconds. So this is how much time the system will try to call a user's devices, right? So call comes in, they enter in Bob's extension, and then for the next 45 seconds, it's going to try to ring Bob's devices over here. Now, 45 seconds is a long time for a VoIP phone or a landline, right? So 20 seconds is typically plenty of time for a VoIP phone or a landline. However, when routing calls to a cell phone, you do want to put it at 45 seconds or a minute, right? As far as phone systems are concerned, it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline, right? So when we send a call to either one of those, right, if we send a call to a landline, that telecom company, right, knows exactly where that phone is, right? So because call goes to the landline telecom company, they say, oh, we know where that is. Boom, sends a call directly there. when we send a call to a cell phone carrier, right? Call goes to a cell phone carrier that's like, oh, we know who that is. Where are they? So then, they ping cell phone towers, they find you, then they send the call to you. That delay is why it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone, right? From your personal experience, you don't notice it because you're waiting for the phone to ring, right? You're like, once the phone rings, you're like, oh, pick up, great. And then you got the option for your main extension here as well. That's your default extension for a user, because users, you can add multiple extensions if you want to. Also, you can unassign an extension number. Like say if you have different series for different departments, right? Then Bob is going to move departments. I can unassign his 1020 extension and move him to the 7000 series extension. Users can have their own phone numbers. Again, you can buy numbers here, local or toll-free. I don't have any spares, so that's why that's grayed out. You have a little big gear icon here, so you can set the caller ID, the E911, and PPAN. Depending on the plan, you can also have text messaging. So on the number here, on the gear icon, you would have an SMS option if you had that enabled on your account. Devices, right, shows your devices on the account. You can add new devices here, or you can do it on the devices page. I usually have customers do it directly for the VirtualPBX soft phone and the web phone, just to do it on the user so you know for sure it's here. But when you add a device to a user, after you click the create device, you do need to click save changes. All right, and then we got user features. Caller ID number only applies to users who have their own phone number. Basically, what you're saying is when this is on, when they make an outbound call from their VoIP devices, this is the caller ID that will show up instead of one of your main numbers. Call forwarding. If you have off, on, and failover mode. So basically, what this is, if you're making use of call forwarding, the user is going to, hey, I'm not going to be at my normal desk phone, but so I can still take business calls. Please send it to either a desk phone or a mobile phone, and then you put +1 area code and phone number, and click Save Changes. Your users can set up their own call forwarding. There's an option for them to do that in the user portal, and from your VoIP phone users, there's actually set up feature codes that they can do directly from the VoIP phone. Failover mode is also for your VoIP phone users. Basically, what happens if the system detects that their VoIP phone has become unregistered and a call comes into that user, it will automatically send it to the forwarding device. So both for on and failover mode, the forwarding device, that should not already be a device on the user, right? Because it's a phone they don't typically use. They're not using it day to day. So if you already have, like if Dana here had a cell phone already on here, there'd be no point in having call forwarding enabled. Hot desking. If you turn this on, you create a hot desk ID. This is also a VoIP feature. This is in an instance where you're in a shared office environment or an office environment where you can switch desks from day to day. Right, so people don't have assigned desks. They just happen to come in and get to the first available desk. And they all have like the same kind of computer. They have the same phone, and they just start taking calls. So what this does is, say I come in, I sit at desk number 7, I pick up the handset on my phone at desk number 7, I hit *11, right, feature code for hot desking, and well, then the system asks me for the hot desk ID. If there's a PIN number associated with it, it will ask me for that, and then it'll say calls will be now forwarded to this device. So now any call to my user will go to desk number 7. Right, at the end of my day, I hit *12, that turns off hot desking on that phone. Tomorrow, I roll in, and desk 7's already being used. I'm like, oh, all right, well, desk number 1's open. So I sit there, I get same thing, hit *11, enter in my hot desk ID, calls come to me when I'm sitting at desk number 1. Voicemail box was created when the user was created. Fax box. Users can have their own fax box, typically for receiving faxes. You can have their own phone number, right? You can select from a spare number, buy a new number. You can also have it go to an extension. I typically don't recommend this just because you're going to rely on the person who's faxing to you, to then call a main number, right? Hear the greeting, enter in the fax extension, and then hit send fax. This might be a product of my own work experience, but whenever I used to fax, I would just go to the fax screen, enter a number, hit send fax, walk off, get coffee or whatever, and then come back later and check to see if the fax went through. So I'm like, it's just probably easier for most people if you select a number. Conference bridge, if you want to enable it on a user, right, it shows the phone number, the default conference room number is their extension number, and then you enter in a PIN, and you click on Save Changes. Now, again, in the user portal, your users can adjust their PIN numbers for the conferencing. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. Now, if you notice here, when you first enable it, this is how it looks. None of your devices are ringing, right? So you can choose which devices you want to ring. Up here is the total ring time, which is defaults to 120 seconds. And you can click distribute, so you can say, hey, ring this phone first and then this one, right? And then I'm saying, hey, don't ring this one at all. Now I can always change my mind, and now I can ring all three of these. And just like in groups, right, I can change the order around and click distribute, or I can also adjust the sliders. And I can say, hey, just have all my phones ring. I'll pick up the one I'm closest to. Music on hold. Your staff members, you can have them have their own hold music, right? So that would supersede the settings on the dashboard page. Upload the file, again, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte, and then click the little upload icon, and then click Save Changes. Customize call recording. When you enable it, then you need to choose which type of files you're going to have record. Inbound internal means coworker Bob called me. Right? Inbound external means a customer called in. Outbound internal means I called coworker Bob. Right? Outbound external means I called a customer back. Right? So you choose which ones you want to record, and then you click Save Changes. And that will also would apply to if this user is in a group. And then you got Do Not Disturb, meaning, hey, send all calls to voicemail for this user, i.e. they're going to be out of the office for the time being. Voicemail boxes. Here you see all the voicemail boxes on the account. You can create your own voicemail box up here, right? Give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then click on Create Voicemail Box. The reason you would create a new voicemail box is, say, for your ring groups or for your queues, right? Because your users will have already had their own. On any voicemail box, right, you can click on the wrench icon. So you can change the name, the PIN number, the voicemail box number. If you click Advanced, under Greeting and Media, so here you can change the voicemail greeting file for any voicemail box. So the media file, that's the default, right? That's going to play most of the time, right? Their normal greeting. The temporary is if, like, hey, Bob's going to be on vacation. We can have this temporary greeting file play to let people know when they get to his voicemail box, he's not going to be around for a while. When he gets back, then you can change this back to none, and then the normal file will keep playing. Again, you can upload files, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. And again, if you make any changes, click on Save Changes. Recipients. So for any manually created voicemail box, you do want to have at least one recipient here. For a user voicemail box, right? So let's say Bob Smith's user. If you add an email address here, this would be in addition to Bob's login username, right? Because that's an email address. That's the default that his voicemails go to. This would be a secondary person, like Bob's manager, for example. Under options, so once you have a media file set up and recipients denoted, you just go ahead and click for already set up. Now, by default, you have this one here, delete after notification. So when a voicemail is left, the system will email the recipients and or the user a message saying, hey, you got a voicemail, and then include an attachment. Right? And because it includes that attachment, the system will then delete the voicemail on the system, so that way the voicemail box doesn't get full. Right? Voicemail boxes are limited to 100 messages. Now, if you want or your staff members prefer to either log into the user portal or call in on their phone to listen to their voicemails, then you would want to uncheck that. And if you don't want your staff members to actually get the voicemails via email, you would uncheck this one here, which is attached messages to mail. And then again, save changes if you make any changes. Advanced routing. This is mostly for our migrated customers, at least currently. Once it loads. All right, so this is direct inward system access. This allows, if you enable it, a cell phone user or a landline to call into one of your main numbers and then get to outbound dialing to make an outbound call. The caller ID on that outbound call would, again, be that main caller ID you have on the system. So if I click Enable, and then I click Edit Settings, probably want to set up an extension number and a PIN number, and then Save Changes. So now, any of my users, actually technically anybody, can call into your main number. They can then enter in this extension number and then this PIN number. After they do that, they'll get dial tone again, so then they can enter one area code and phone number, dial out to a customer, make a call. Right? And when they make that call, it's not their cell phone caller ID that shows up, it's your main number. Now, for new signups, this is not enabled right off the bat. It's something you would need to request to be enabled because, again, if people can figure out the PIN number and that extension number, you have the chance of bad actors getting into your system and then making a bunch of outbound calls, and you're not going to know about it right away. That can increase your bill. Also in this section would be where you would see auto route rules that go to like an extension or a voicemail box, as well as select route, again, for our migrated customers. Now, currently, for our migrated customers, if you want to make changes to your select route, for example, or your auto route rules, you would need to submit a request into our support team because our backend team would have to make those adjustments for you. That will be changing in the near future. Excuse me. Call logs. This shows your call history on the system. All right, green arrow to the right says, hey, this call came into the system. All right, the orange or yellow arrow to the left means call went out. The little fire hydrant icon here, this will create an email. It will have the technical details of the call. I would ask that in the body of that email, you explain what you experienced, right? So call came in, right? This call says it came to my user, or user Bob, but he said his phone number rang, right? That tells us, okay, let's see what's going on. You can always download the file to the CSV file. You got custom, so you can adjust the date range as well. Feature codes, I've already mentioned a couple of these. Basically, dial pad shortcuts on your VoIP phones. This is also on our website under the support pages, so you always have to log in to see them. I mentioned this before. There's also, on most live accounts, or depending on the account, multiple auto attendants that would show up. I would recommend going back to the stream from Monday because that's when I was able to walk you through that. But basically, the multiple auto attendants, you can have different main greetings for your different phone numbers, and they can have their own menu options. And again, you can select to have those auto attendants show up as a menu option on any of the other auto attendants, essentially, so you can have submenu available. All right, let's go over here. So we've been on the dashboard. Next up, we've got ACD queues. So ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. Now, these are the standard queues. So this is between $15 and $30 per month per queue, depending on your plan. You can click here to add a new queue. I'm just going to click on the little gear icon here on an existing queue. Give the queue name, and then you have a choice of either selecting an extension number or a phone number. And so that's a phone number would go directly into the queue, right? Where extension would be your other staff members can transfer calls to this. And again, a queue can be a menu option from your main menus. Now, under configuration, you've got queue routing strategy. This one is set to most idle. Unfortunately, the pull down is not working. So most idle means the next call that comes in goes to the person who's been waiting for the call the longest. You also have round robin, which basically equalizes out over time. You have ring all, it basically rings everyone until someone picks up. You have least offered. So say Bob and Mary have been in the queue. Bob's been offered 20 calls. Mary's been offered 5 calls. Next call comes in, goes to Mary because she's only been offered 5 calls. Right? And then the last option is least calls, which means least amount of connected calls. So in that scenario of Bob has had 20 offers and Mary's had 5, let's say Bob's only spoken to 2 people, but Mary has spoken to all 5 of hers. The next call that comes in goes to Bob in that scenario. Right. And those are also available on the Pro queues. Hold treatment, you can upload a music file, .wave.mp3, recorded mono, 1 megabyte. On Pro queues, you have more options for your hold treatment. You can have things like announce position, announce wait time. You can have multiple music files or the same music file repeat, like after the announce hold time, music file, announce position. You can have that same music file or a different file play, that sort of thing. A queue timeout in seconds, this is how much time an inbound caller can wait on hold. Queue call limit, you can limit the number of calls that are in a queue at a given time. In the case of 0, you're saying there's no limit to the number of calls that can be in there. Timeout immediately if empty. So if you have no staff members logged into the queue, treat any inbound call as if they already hit this 3,600-second timeout. Escalation queue basically means none of your staff was able to answer the call none of your logged in staff members in this queue were able to answer a call. So then you're sending the inbound call to another queue to have someone else have a chance to answer the call. And then the escalation call flow after timeout. So once that 3,600 timer has gone through, whether or not they're still in this queue or they went to the escalation queue, the system will then send them to this voicemail box. But again, you've got these other options here where you can send it to a specific device. You can send it to a user. You can actually send it to a media file, etc. Agent behavior, recovery time. This is measured in seconds. This is normally between 15 to 30 seconds for most customers that I've seen. Basically, after an agent has finished with a call, the system will not offer them a second call until this timer has expired, right? So they have time to get a drink of water, finish up their notes, etc. Force away on reject or missed call basically means if an agent misses a call, the system will put them in away mode, and that user will then have to mark themselves as ready again to be able to take calls. And then agent connect timeout, basically how much time do we try to reach the user's devices. Again, on queues, currently you can only use VoIP devices, so 20 seconds is typically plenty of time. All right, if you click on the little person with the headset, that's your members management area. These shows your users that are in or available to be in queues. If you click on Manage Members, right on the left, you got users who are not currently assigned to queues. On the right, you have the users who you have put in queues, right? So if you want to add more people, you just click on the name or multiple names, and then click Add as Members. Likewise, if you need to remove people, you would click on them and say Remove Members. Right. And then for your staff members, again, if they're in a queue, they'll have the queue option here. And right, then they can click on Begin Session, so that's logging them in. Now, from the VoIP phones, they can hit *20 to log in, and then *21, they can mark themselves as ready. That means they're ready to take a call. And you see here, I'm in this queue, right? Because that changed to 1. Once it loads, it says, "Hey, look, I'm green. That means I'm waiting for a call. Got 0 and 0. Here's my timer, how long I've been in." You also have this option here. If you click on the phones, your agent can select which VoIP phone they want to take calls on, or they can just select all. Right? If they need to go to lunch, right, they can just mark themselves away. Right? Turned red there. And at the end of my day, I click End Session. All right, blacklist. This allows you to create rules or a rule to block callers, particular callers from reaching your system. Right? So you would click on Edit Settings. You would either click Add to create a new list or click on an existing list. Block Anonymous means if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, you're blocking the call. And then you would click Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number, and then you would click on Save or Add if you have multiple numbers to add. You then go back to Settings, and then you make sure that list is over here on the right under Selected, and then you click Update. So then any numbers that are on these lists, when they try to call any of my phone numbers, right, whether they're going to a user or their main number, that inbound caller, they get busy tone. So they can't come into your system and harass your staff members. Next up, we got the faxes. So as an admin, you can get to any fax box on the system, so you can see the inbound and outbound faxes. And this is a test account, so there's really nothing to see. But you can also get to the email to fax logs, which over here on the right, there's a little eyeball icon. You can click on that, and that will give you more information about why that fax did not go out, like invalid attachment, or your staff member used the wrong email address to fax out. Typically the most common ones we see. Monitor, I believe, is only available on certain plans, but this allows you to see what your staff is doing in terms of green means they're waiting for a call, blue, they're on an inbound, red, they've marked themselves away, yellow, they're on external call, meaning outbound typically, gold means they're on recovery time from a queue call. The Recordings Manager, this goes to a separate website hosted by AWS. You use your Dash login, and you can then view your recordings. Reports, this is currently in beta. This is an advanced version of the call logs. It's much more granular, and you can see who's getting calls or compare like call statistics, etc. If you're interested in the reports, then or the advanced reporting, you're going to want to contact our services team, and so they can get their reporting specialist to get you set up and go through training with you. User portal, I've mentioned this a couple of times. Every user on your account has their own user portal. They can check their voicemails. Again, they would only show up if you have disabled delete after notification on their voicemail box. You can see their call history, or they can view their own call history, right? And they can change the date range. They can see their fax box history, or their fax history. The contact list, this is everything within your Dash account, right? So every user, ring group, a queue, etc. This is not something like you can add, like your salesperson couldn't add their client list here. That's not possible at this time, or I don't think ever, at least I haven't heard so that's changing. Conference, you can invite people to an existing other Dash users to an existing conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and hang up. When you're actually in a conference, you can mute a specific participant as well as kick a particular participant. Over here, this is where your staff members can control their own PIN numbers, as well as like when they hear tones when people log in or out. Settings and devices, this is where your users can set up their own call forwarding and what device they're going to, and then click on save. They can also see the status of their devices. Voicemails, again, like the fax manager, as an admin, you can get to any of the voicemail boxes on your system, right? You can play them back, you can download them, you can delete them, etc. And then lastly, you got the option here for webhooks. This basically allows you to make use of APIs to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in this, you would want to contact our sales team. They have some additional information and documentation for you. I believe there is special pricing that's involved with that. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code that we use to leverage the API use in Dash. And that is everything. So I'll hang out here for a minute or so to see if anyone has any questions via chat. If you don't, feel free to drop off. But as I said, I'll wait a couple minutes before I end the stream. All right, not seeing any chats come in, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.